This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. A lot of things to continue to uncover revolving around the second assassination attempt, supposedly, of course, on Donald Trump. As we all know on this channel, the news plays out psychologically to control and manipulate people, many of whom think they're awake, who are still stuck in believing that the news is real. And the government is playing with people's minds like never before. Because so many people are caught into this, they've actually created a psyop around a psyop. They've actually convinced people of this narrative that the deep state's trying to take out Trump, which there's no truth to at all, because Trump is a part of the deep state. But if you believe in that reality, the government will continue to have control over you. Never forget the quote from Albert Pike. Albert Pike, the 33rd degree Freemason, the man who has scripted out all the world wars, not predicted the world wars, scripted them out. World War I, World War II, and now we are seeing World War III scripted out to a T, which was written by Albert Pike, who all Freemasons follow his teachings, and all of these people, including Trump, are members of the same secret societies working together to deceive you. Remember his quote, "Whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him." And Trump is the hero for people who see a tyrannical government. And of course, they're supplying the hero so that you put your hope in the hero and a real revolution does not occur. For anybody out there that doesn't understand what this channel is about, because so many people have found my channel, and again, they continue to say, "I don't get it, man. What is this guy supports Kamala Harris? It's better to support Trump than Kamala Harris." They can't seem to psychologically grasp that the entire thing is make-believe. It's made up. It prevents a real revolution. If you believe that the news is real, think again. It's there to manufacture you. So we need to cover some of the stuff that has come out of the Trump second assassination attempt, including this. Let's start with this, because everybody who follows my channel knows that they show us these things in advance, predictive programming. This is a form of black magic. They reveal their plans right in front of our faces, and on all days, September 11th, you can see this was tweeted out from Time Magazine, from their Twitter account. This is not something that was AI generated. This is legit. And of course, the date, September 11th, how coincidental that they tweeted it and pinned it on their Twitter account. Time Magazine has this cover of Donald Trump playing golf on his golf course in trouble, right? How very convenient. Now, of course, if you're a sheeple and you believe that this stuff is coincidental, or you believe that this one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other, well, you're not woken up to what's actually going on. Your brain is actually just functioning at a very low frequency, a very low wavelength, and you need to bring yourself out of it so you can see how these things work and these people/demons actually work. This stuff is scripted out beforehand and revealed to us beforehand. They knew beforehand that a second assassination attempt was going to occur, and we're likely going to see a third, and I'll cover that in a separate video, because we know how they work in threes, and maybe the third time will be a charm, and that could come after the fact if they put Trump in office or not. We'll see how the script plays out. Just understand that this is scripted, right? So they show you on Time Magazine's cover that Trump is in trouble, and of course, they conveniently, this is of course a coincidence, show him in a golf court on a golf course just where they attempted the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Now, I recently discussed in my videos in July about this whole way how everybody out there thinks that it was divine intervention, how somehow the CIA actually, with a wide open shot on Donald Trump, would actually be able to miss Donald Trump, right? Because remember, the conservatives, the Republicans, they think that the deep state tried to attempt to kill Donald Trump, that this is a government scheme, which it is a government scheme, but they don't understand that the entire thing is a government scheme. The entire thing is a psychological law. None of these people are independent of the government. They're all working together. And the psychosis is what they have you in, believing that these people in power, there's actually going to be a hero that comes out that's going to pull us out of this rut, out of this tyranny that the government's created. It's not going to happen, because they're controlled. They want you to invest emotionally in these people so a real revolution doesn't occur, because there's more of us than them. Like I said, whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him. Trump is the hero that they're supplying to the conservatives. So they somehow missed, right, the first time around. Now they somehow missed the second time around. And they're deliberately putting the narrative out there that somebody inside of Trump's camp has betray Trump. Remember the Captain America movie that came out? The trailer came out 24 hours before the first assassination attempt. Remember the trailer where somebody inside Harrison Ford, who was playing the president in Captain America, somebody on the inside betrayed him and was able to get close to him and almost take his life in a failed assassination attempt. The same exact script. Well, that narrative continues to linger because Trump, they're claiming it was a last-minute decision for him to go out and play golf. So how did this guy know beforehand, right? How did he know? Well, of course he's a government operative. That's all been revealed. His connection over in Ukraine, being over in Ukraine. Obviously, everybody can see, which I'll get into, that he looks like what we would call an MK Ultra project, that he'd be a Manchurian candidate of some type. So for him to know where Trump was going to be, what his tee time was going to be able to get onto the golf course with the weapons that he had, right? Those are all very suspicious. So people out there saying, well, the government was in on it. They were trying to take him out. You got to get past that part and realize if the government want to take him out, they take him out. They want you to believe that they're trying to take him out, so you support him more. No, I do not support Kamala Harris. No, I don't support Donald Trump. They're all compromised. That's what people have to get through their head. So they want you to think of this narrative. How did he get there? How did he have access? Trump is so against the deep state. They have to do whatever they can to take him out, right? That's the alt-right media narrative. That's Alex Jones. That's what all these talking heads on the alt-right who are controlled are putting out there. That they got to take him out. They're going to do whatever they can. So somebody must have told this clown, right, the tee time, where Trump was going to be, even though it was last minute. How did he get it? Well, the Secret Service must have told him, right? That's the narrative that the government themselves want conservatives to believe. The reality is that they're feeding you that narrative. You're not becoming a sleuth or a detective by thinking that way. They're telling you to think that way. They're baiting you into thinking that they're trying to kill Trump. This isn't some massive, oh boy, we figured it out, that the deep state's trying to take out Trump. That's the narrative that they're giving you, okay? They're not trying to take him out. If they wanted to take him out, they would take him out already. But they will, in due time, take him out because you can guarantee that they didn't do all this stuff with Trump to eventually let him die naturally without doing something to cause massive amounts of chaos. And they will, but not yet. So this guy, of course, knew everything. The government, okay, right? So here are the narratives that are trending out there. He's a Republican, right? Because this was the same thing we heard with the last guy, registered Republican, right? This constant blurring of the lines between, oh my gosh, what's real information, what's not? Oh, the Democrats are saying he's a Republican, he's not a Republican, right? This keeps them at odds with each other and pointing a finger at each other. And some of the things floating around as well is Trump cheating death again, right? Cheating death again. Somehow, oh, he just keeps hanging on. He keeps hanging on. He's somehow eluding the deep state by an inch. God's divine intervention, right? The other thing trending is MK Ultra, which it's incredible that we're seeing things like this trend. But over the last year, we've seen things like Project Bluebeam trend. Now we're seeing MK Ultra trend, which MK Ultra will trend sometimes when some of these celebrities have glitches out in the open and people get suspicious of how they're behaving, Britney Spears, etc., right? Well, MK Ultra is trending because this guy fits the bill of what somebody who's under MK Ultra would look like. And nobody's arguing whether or not this guy's under MK Ultra or not. Of course he's under MK Ultra. He's a government asset, clearly. He's living over in Kyiv. He's clearly connected to the government. He's on Newsweek. He's in New York Times, right? So nobody's questioning that. But realize that the government can create an assassin in the blink of an eye. They have so many super soldier assassins around the earth right now. They could access any one of them to take out Trump at any point in time. This guy who's clearly, short-circuited, he fits the bill perfectly. He fits the bill as well to make you think that the government created, a Manchurian candidate, used MK Ultra on him, which they want you to believe, right? They want you to think that this guy's MK Ultra by how they're presenting him out, which he likely is, but that he just so happened to miss the shot again, right? So everybody out there is talking about, well, he's definitely MK Ultra, right? It's trending. So then his son comes out, and his son says something along the lines that, a Democrat would say. His dad hates Trump like all reasonable people do, right? Kind of hinting at, well, Trump deserves to die, which has been a Democrat mindset and talking point for about 8 years. How many things have I covered where they've shown you predictive programming of Trump assassinations? Everybody's seen it, right? From holding up his decapitated head with Kathy Griffin to Snoop in his video literally shooting Donald Trump, right? So this guy is feeding into that, saying all reasonable people hate Trump. And Kamala Harris has even done an interview on Ellen talking about hinting at assassinating Trump and how the world would be a better place without him, right? So this guy's hinting at that, the son of the alleged shooter. But he says he's never owned a gun and wouldn't do anything along those lines. Now, in my previous video, I talked about all the carbon copy blueprints of government operations, right? I mentioned an AK-47, and a lot of you said, hey, wait a minute, it's always an AR-15. Okay, well, that's not necessarily true. It's usually an AR-15 or an AK-47. You hear a lot more AR-15s, which are true, right? In Uvalde, Texas, AR-15. In Buffalo, at the grocery store, AR-15. But they use both. They're using assault rifles. It's about an assault rifle ban, okay? In El Paso, Texas, if you don't remember, I believe it was 2019, we had the AK-47 style weapon that killed 22 people at a Walmart. In Gilroy, California, we had one as well where 17 people were killed using an AK-47. So it's about assault rifles. And here's another thing. If anybody out there is looking for some types of connections with the government and this guy, other than the fact that he's over in Ukraine living, walking the streets, being allowed to, go over there as if he wasn't on the government's radar. Anybody who's in Ukraine right now who's a U.S. citizen is on the government's radar. Anybody who's in Ukraine's on the government's radar. And in fact, we're all anyway on the government's radar. But this guy was over there, so clearly we know he's likely a government asset. But he also appears in a commercial which was put out in 2022. It was a propaganda video for Azov, A-Z-O-V Battalion, a Ukrainian militia with, of course, connections to the CIA. Here's the commercial that he's featured in.
Purpose of the action is to appeal to world leaders. World Organization. Purpose of the action is to appeal to world leaders.
And again, any militia group, any intel group, any group that's a militia, going from ISIS to Hamas, these are all creations of the CIA, right? So his affiliation with being in the commercial for the Azov Battalion tells us directly that he has a connection to the CIA. And it's not a coincidence because people are, figuring this stuff out. It's almost like it is being done by design that he's in a commercial with an affiliation to the CIA. And of course, we saw the first shooter's connection to BlackRock, which is a direct connection to the CIA, being featured in that commercial as well.
Brian DeLallo. I teach AP and honors economics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Financial well-being to me is knowing that I can be free to do the things that I love to do. I hope when I retire someday, they say that guy made this place a special place to come to school.
So it's almost like they're making it overly obvious at this point. They want conservatives to believe that this guy is working with the government, that it's an inside job. And there's truth to that. But look, you're looking at it from a one-layered surface, right? You're looking at it as if the government is stupid. You're looking at it as if the intel agencies are stupid. There's layers to this, right? So you're looking at it, you're going, this is clearly an inside job. And the government wants you to think that. That's what they know. That's the immediate response of conservatives. What do you think? They're caught off guard today? That all conservatives are saying that the deep state's trying to kill Trump, that the government, the CIA is trying to kill Trump? That's exactly what they expected when they carried this out. So if you're believing that the government carried this out, why would you not believe that the government carried it out with the intent to not whack Donald Trump, that it would be another misfire, that you would come out the next day or hours later, you would investigate the guy that they gave you as the shooter, and you would say that there's every single thing that shows us that he's connected to the CIA, so this is a CIA operation. They want Trump dead because Trump's going to stop. That's the narrative that they want. They control both sides, right? This is your Masonic duality. This is your black and your white, good and evil. They control all of it. And it's imperative for them that you stay psychologically entrapped in the left-right. Because think about this. If you knew that the government had gone rogue and you knew the government was doing what they're doing, what has happened in the past? What has occurred throughout history, even though the majority of history we've been taught is a lie? But what has occurred? Revolutions have actually occurred. Civilians have said, is this something we're dying for? Would we die? Would we risk our lives so our children don't have to live under government rule like this? The answer is yes. So what ends up happening? Civilians get armed. Civilians decide, hey, we outnumber them by a lot. And no matter what weaponry these people have, numbers will still win if people are willing to lay their lives down to stop a tyrannical government or to stand up for a cause, right? That's the one thing they've always been afraid of. So once they've had control of both sides like they do now, they can move forward with this because instead of worrying about a revolution occurring and people saying, look, the government's taking away our free speech, they're taking our tax money and laundering it, we shouldn't even pay. Instead of that, right, they're saying, well, we'll have all of them look at a savior. We'll present a savior, and his name will be Donald Trump, and he'll say all the right things that everybody out there wants to hear, and they'll invest by going to vote. And then when we start screwing with the elections again for the final time on November 5th, 2024, we'll be able to take all of these people who are emotionally invested in Trump, and we'll be able to manipulate them. We'll make them think, hey, they were right. It's a government deep state operation. But what they'll never get is they'll never pull the next layer off and realize that Trump was working with them all along to move you, to herd you, and most importantly, to prevent an actual revolution. That's what this is about. And people out there just refuse. Conservatives refuse to believe that because they're so emotionally invested at this point. You think that they'd actually do this? That Trump would actually be alive at this point? That Trump would have won the first election? Why didn't they just make him lose the first one? That they just decided after the first election to start rigging the election? They've been rigging the elections forever because the elections aren't real. These are placeholders. These are actors put in positions to pretend to be the president when all these people above them are the ones pulling the strings and calling the shots. Trump's purpose is more important than anybody else's because Trump is the placeholder to prevent the revolution. And when they decide to take Trump out, because eventually, which I'll get into in a separate video, the third time will be a charm. Because as everybody knows, they always come in threes. That is one of their mottos. So there will be an attempt on him that will go through. Now, will he really be dead? The answer is most definitely no. He will not be. And remember what this guy who the supposed shooter is. Another thing that's out there trending is Epstein. Because everybody's saying, well, we want to hear this guy talk. We want this guy to be interviewed so we could hear about, whatever he says and maybe a connection directly to the government so we could prove that he's a government asset. Because it's very obvious that he's a government asset, right? Everybody out there is conservative is saying he's a government asset, okay? You don't have to be a conspiracy theory. You don't have to pull, because the government's feeding you that narrative. So Epstein is trending because everyone's saying that he's going to get Jack Ruby, that he'll never make it. He'll get Epstein. But these are the same people who believe that Epstein's actually dead, right? That's the problem. You see what I'm saying? Of course, all this stuff with Epstein was suspicious. Well, don't you think it was suspicious that they gave you a list and flight logs and that they kept feeding you this narrative and then they had this mysterious... Well, you would never know about it unless they wanted you to know. You never know about how his room had the cameras conveniently off. People don't think that far ahead. They hear that. They're like, I knew it. I knew something. The government's the one who told you the cameras and everything was off. The guard stepped down and Epstein was, suicided, right? I mean, it's all make-believe. It's make-believe. He's not dead. They ship him off to the same place that most conservatives are trying to protect, right? Israel, they send him over there. They get a little plastic surgery. They live their days out. This happens to all of them. They'll probably bump into the Comet ping pong guy over there too. They're all over there. They ship them off. They just serve a purpose as actors. You would never know if these people were in prison or not, or if they were dead or not, because your reality is being controlled by the news and what they tell you and show you, right? You would never know. You would never know any of this stuff about Epstein. You'd never know any of this other stuff that's going on. They do this stuff with war, right? They feed us information about hostages to make you believe that, they're holding hostages here. They're holding Well, they tell you that stuff so you believe that this is what's going on instead of just an onslaught of murders against civilians, genocide against civilians on both sides, right? They make it into a movie, a production. So back to the story here. That's another narrative that's trending. Epstein, that this guy's going to get whacked, very possibly could be true. But you got to remember, I mean, these people are conservative. They think that the government and the CIA are idiots, right? They're like, you don't think that the government knows how this looks trying to whack him? If the government want him dead, they could poison him with the weapons that they have. They could kill him from miles away. They could hit him with a direct energy weapon and say that he had a fire. I mean, there's so many things that could be done. So many things that they could do if they really wanted him out. They've had the type of weaponry, which I've covered on my channels over the years, to give somebody a heart attack, okay? They could send radiation at you and give you a stroke in the snap of their fingers, right? So why would they need to do it this way if they wanted him out? They would have taken him out. So these people literally look at this stuff and they're like, there's something going on there. And they think they're detectives. They think they're sleuths. And the government knows you're going to think this way. And they feed it to you this way. So that you look at it and you think that, oh, you're solving this. They know how obvious it looks that it's a government inside job. They don't want you to peel the next layer off and realize that they're working together to bait you because they're trying to prevent a real revolution. So just to recap all the stuff in this video, which was a lot of different things, but I needed to cover. Time Magazine, of course, in trouble. Shows you, I mean, so every time we have something beforehand, right? Every single time we have MK Ultra trending, the whole notion of Trump eluding death again. But of course, we know third time's a charm, like I said. And we have all the same bullet points, right? His connection to being in a CIA-run commercial propaganda piece, his connection to Newsweek, New York Times, the guy's all over the place, right? Very clearly working with the government. So nobody's saying that he's not a government asset working with the government. It's just your notion of if the government was going to pick somebody who will take him out, they would have picked some black ops guy to take him out. They wouldn't have picked a guy in a video who's got blue hair, who looks like a lib, who talks like a lib, who's obsessed with Ukraine. They're doing it to gaslight you. That's what they're doing. You wouldn't know about any of this stuff in the news unless they wanted you to know about it. They can keep everything hush-hush. They control it all. Everything that gets out by design. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.